and magic, brown skin popping, always fly. I stay in the cockpit. I want it, I cop it. Open the door, then lock it.
What up, though? It's your girl Mila coming at you with another episode of Girls with Bars, the podcast focused on women in hip hop, run by a woman who loves hip hop. This episode, this was not really planned, but I felt like I should talk about it. I knew that at some point I was going to have to do an episode that was a little bit politically charged, just because I am that type of person. I don't have to be political all the time, but I know things, I feel things, I'm a human being, and I do value discussions about society and sociology and the way that society affects everything in our lives. In this case, the way it affects the culture of hip hop. So this episode came about because I was on Twitter today, and one of the rappers that I followed, she said something, and I'm not gonna say who she is. If you follow me on Twitter at Girls with Bars, then you'll see it on my timeline. But she said that she loved dark-skinned girls, but not the ones that was too crispy, but the Milky Ways were great or something like that. And so I just chuckled at it and I laughed or whatever. As a dark-skinned woman, I mean, it didn't make me feel any type of way. Number one, I don't like girls, so it doesn't affect me negatively on a personal level to not be desired by another woman. But since I am a dark-skinned black woman, and most of what I got bullied for when I was a kid was being dark-skinned, was being, as she calls it, crispy. It's something that colorism is something that has always affected me. And, the issue of colorism specifically in regards to women in the entertainment industry is something that's just kind of been popping off lately. The whole thing with Amara La Negra, that has been, causing a lot of riffraff or whatever. I didn't even watch the interview that she did on the Breakfast Club, because I just felt like it was just going to be triggering and just upsetting. And so I just didn't watch it, but I got enough context and I heard enough people talking about it to know what went on. But yeah, so before I even really get deep into this, I want to say this disclaimer, which I shouldn't really have to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because I am the voice of reason. So me talking about colorism and how dark-skinned women are affected by it is not an attack on lighter-skinned women or lighter-skinned individuals. Talking about issues that affect darker-skinned people is not an attack on lighter-skinned people. It is simply what it is. A discussion about how darker-skinned individuals are treated and how they are affected and how the culture and black culture as a whole is affected as a result. And if you can't understand that, then you might not want to listen to the rest of this episode, because I'm not going to keep going back on my words to make sure that I don't step on light-skinned people's toes or hurt their feelings. I'm just, from here on out, I'm just going to say what's on my mind. And if you can take that, cool, keep listening. Because again, anybody that knows me or has listened to, my podcast in the past knows that I have no problem with light-skinned people. I'm not a bitter person. But I am, however, still a person, and I do still have feelings and thoughts and opinions, and this podcast is a place for me to talk about them. So if you can take it, keep listening, because I am going to be talking about some real shit on here, and it would be beneficial for you to hear it. If you can't take it, then don't listen. No hard feelings. So back to the girl. So when she said that, like, it wasn't really, like I said, it wasn't something that, like, made me feel any type of way. It was just something that I just was like, it just seemed so unnecessary for her to say that. And, you know, and I was talking to a couple of other girls who, saw it, and it was just like, they're just confused as to, like, why would you feel the need to say something like that? You know, like, you couldn't just say you love dark-skinned girls or you love dark-skinned women and leave it at that. You had to disparage, women whose skin is darker than milk chocolate, for good measure. And it's also interesting because this girl is not light-skinned, She's not what people would call crispy, I don't think. But she is a dark-skinned girl herself. And, it definitely seemed like some internalized colorism type of stuff, type of thing, where it's like people might have told her, like, things that I heard as I was growing up, like, you're dark skinned, but you're pretty. You know what I'm saying? Like, those backhanded compliments, like, you dark, but you still pretty. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not as dark as that girl over there. If you were that dark, then, like, it would be impossible for you to be desirable or pretty. And so, that happens. Internalizing oppression, it does happen. And that's what it seemed like when I was reading that. But I'm not trying to focus on that particular incident. But that's what, kind of like kicked off this whole thing and made me decide to record this episode right now. So let's talk about how colorism has affected women in hip hop. I'm just going to touch on this lightly. And I'm going to start with Lil' Kim, because I feel like she's the biggest example of this. She's had a lot of work done, and she's lightened her skin. She's done a lot of things to her skin. She looks very different than what she used to look like when she first came into the game, and people have made fun of her for that. Some of them not acknowledging the fact that what pushed her to feel like she needed to change herself was due to colorism. I remember, like, a year or so ago, we were talking about this on Twitter, and I remember this light-skinned guy who actually, this light-skinned guy, I remember I had said something about colorism affecting Kim, and this light-skinned guy proceeds to hop into my mentions and tell me that, that she was popping at the time when dark-skinned girls were, like, the standard of beauty and all of this different stuff like that. I guess because, like, in the 90s, you know what I'm saying, we did have, like, a little bit more representation for dark-skinned girls. We had Kim, we had Foxy, and things like that. But that does not take away from the fact that colorism has always been pervasive and has always been harmful, no matter what era. Like in the 70s, having dark skin was this, that, and the third. But I wasn't alive in the 70s, so I'm just going based on, like, things that I've watched, things that I've heard, things that I've studied. But again, like, none of this takes away from the fact that in America, the lighter you are, the closer you are to whiteness, the more accepted you are. Period. Point blank. And so when this guy, especially this light skinned man at that, proceeded to try to tell me that I was wrong, and like that, to basically to invalidate Kim's pain and the fact that that is what drove her to do some of the things that she did, it really upset me. And it really just made me feel like, who do you think you are? Like, first of all, you a man. And second of all, you a light-skinned man. And third of all, this guy didn't even live in America. This nigga's from, like, the fucking pond or something, like England or Europe or some shit like that. Like, you're so far removed from the experience of a dark-skinned Black American woman. But that's just, like, an example of how entitled people feel to invalidate Black women, especially dark-skinned Black women's pain and the things that they're going through in their experiences. And I guess, like, these examples, they seem kind of petty, but I'm bringing them up because they represent a larger issue that people don't like to talk about, that is rarely brought up, that's rarely mentioned, and that is that, we all know that basically it's harder for women in any field damn near, but in the entertainment industry, especially in hip-hop, or I won't even say especially, but I mean, I guess I'll say, yeah, in hip-hop, it's harder for women to, be who they are and get the respect that they deserve, and, really have the opportunity to showcase their talent and grow and have the success that they deserve. So these little minor incidents that I'm bringing up, they represent a larger issue. When we think about, people like Nicki Minaj, people like Cardi B, and how they were able to rise and have as much fame as they had, not had, but as they have, people don't like to admit that them having lighter skin and them being, and that them having lighter skin makes them a little bit more marketable than if they were dark skinned. It makes them a little bit more easier for people to digest. People don't like to admit that. And again, like, this isn't, and I feel like people don't like to admit it because they think that by saying that, that means that we're invalidating whatever their personal struggles were to get to where they were. Light skin, like I said, nobody is saying that light skinned people don't go through things and that they don't have things that they have to overcome. That's not the issue. The point is that can we examine why, if there has been anybody that has the amount of success that these girls have, why is it only light-skinned girls that have it? You know what I'm saying? Lauryn Hill had an insane amount of success. And she wasn't light-skinned. She was a dark-skinned Black woman. She had locks. You know what I'm saying? However, she wasn't able to, keep that success. And I'm not this isn't me saying that's why Lauryn Hill fell off. Because we already know that a whole lot of things played into why Lauryn Hill fell off the way she did. A lot of things that had to do with her, mismanaging her career, and a lot of things that had to do with, other people doing shit to her that was shady. So I'm not saying that her being dark skinned is the reason why she didn't have that level of success. But if we're just being real and looking at the amount of success that female rappers are able to attain and what most of them look like, there's something there to be talked about, but we don't talk about it. Like when we think about like hip hop and what it looks like for women, you know, I just feel like dark skinned black women are not at the forefront, and they may have been like for a while in the 90s, like I said, but like that didn't last very long. And again, I'm not saying that that's all because they were dark skinned. It was a lot of other determinant factors. But like, even if we don't just talk about the rappers per se, I remember thinking to myself a couple months ago, you know, I'd be watching, you know, interviews on the Breakfast Club or Complex or whatever, you know, radio stations I was watching YouTube videos on. And I noticed that there's always a woman there, but she always looks a certain way. Every single, you know, hip hop, radio, podcast, whatever that has any amount of notoriety, there's one woman there, and she's usually Latina. I'm not mad at Latinas, you know, taking up space when it comes to hip hop. However, why is it only them? Why do I never see, or hardly ever see, a black woman, you know what I'm saying, interviewing these artists? Why do I never see, you know what I'm saying, like them having, why do I see so few black women taking up space in that arena? That is something that I feel like I don't really hear people talking about that either. And again, I'm not saying that there are no black women in radio and hip hop. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the ones that get the most notoriety, the ones that are, you know, the highest up, all of the women look the same, and they're all light-skinned Latinas. I don't see no Afro Latinas that are dark-skinned like Amara La Negra. I see Latinas that have light skin and straight hair and all of these things like that. So that tells you that for you to be at the top in any arena, whether you're the artist or whether you're the person that's interviewing the artist or whatever the case, you have to look this way. You have to be this. And of course, no rules are absolute. There are exceptions to every rule. But I'm saying, like, look around you. Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to what things look like, what your surroundings are, what these people sound like. Because I don't hear nobody talking about hip-hop or interviewing hip-hop artists that sound like me or look like me. And yet I know that girls that sound like me and look like me love and support hip-hop just as much, if not more, than Latinas do. I know that that's not the reason why, you know what I'm saying, we're not there. And again, that's not to erase Latinas or, you know, those people from what hip hop is, because I'm not stupid. But, you know, where are we? Where are we being represented? And these things do matter because, like in the interview with Amara La Negra, I was listening to the read, and Crystal was talking about how, you know, the girl that's on the Breakfast Club, Angela Yee, I think that's her name, she just step by and let that happen. And she let, you know, these men invalidate Amara's experiences, and just like treat her like shit, basically. But if a black woman who looked like Amara had been there, maybe that might not have went down the way that it did, because maybe if there's somebody else with a similar experience that's connected to the culture for real and that has the guts, and you know what I'm saying, just because somebody black don't automatically mean that they got the range and that they got the guts to like talk about that type of shit. But like, you know, those are the things that you have to think about. The Breakfast Club is like supposed to be the most popular hip hop radio show in the nation, and there's no representation there for black women, even though black women are an integral part of the culture of hip hop. What is that saying? And maybe there are black women there that work behind the scenes or whatever, but where are they on screen? Where are their voices? It's not there. It's not. Our voices are not being elevated and amplified. Why? In part because society largely believes that we don't, like, that our voices are not important. That because we're not desirable by European beauty standards, you know, because we're too crispy, because of that, we don't need to be seen. We don't need to be heard. Our opinions don't matter. We're angry. We're bitter. We are worth less. And so that plays a role into why we are not represented to the same degree as women who are lighter skinned. And I think I'm going to stop there. I don't want to go on forever and ever. I feel like I got my point across. Yeah. Anybody that has a comment, feel free to let me know what you think. Even if it differs from mine, if it's respectful, I'm not going to delete it. I'm not going to be petty. Because I want people to see what y'all think. I want people to see how y'all feel. So, with that, I'm signing off, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.